Ruben Amorim looks like he's going to be announced as the new Manchester United manager. Today we're going to run through the entire Manchester United squad and we're going to have a look at who suits him and who doesn't. We've got 4 different categories here. We've got keep, sell, loan, contract exit. I'll be talking about this across the course of the season, I guess. But before that, let's talk about him as an appointment. From a Manchester United fan's perspective, I think this is probably the most exciting appointment that Ineos could have made. There are a lot of other options being linked to Manchester United, a lot more obvious candidates, ones with Premier League experience at far bigger clubs than Sporting CP. But Ruben Amorim, there is something in the unknown about him that quite excites United fans. Now, rivals and certain sects of Manchester United will be saying this rings in parallels with Erik ten Hag, did amazingly well in a smaller domestic league, was able to dominate that because of player quality, he was able to create huge chances, keep loads of clean sheets, his record was astonishingly good. Is that not just what Erik ten Hag had at Ajax? I think it's slightly different here. Firstly, I do think the Portuguese league translates a lot better to the Premier League than the Eredivisie does. That's been proved out with players over the last few years, with managers over the last few years. I also think when he first took over, Ruben Amorim, Sporting hadn't won a league title in nearly 2 decades. This isn't the most dominant side in Portugal when he takes over. He actually managed to get them up to that level. But most importantly for me isn't necessarily the tactics we're going to see from Ruben Amorim, because I'm going to be won over by them at Manchester United before I am at Sporting. The most important element for me is communication. How is he with the media? How is he speaking to the players? Because that, for me, was what Erik ten Hag was weakest at. Communicating well, effectively, and getting his ideas across clearly didn't happen with the players, and I never felt like it happened with me as a fan. I never watched a press conference or watched a post-game interview and thought, wow, he's blown me away here. So that's probably how I'm going to judge Ruben Amorim early doors. How is he at communicating with not only the players, but also with us, the fans, and the press? It's very, very important. I'm sure he's going to try and win us over with his tactics on the field and how United play. I'm going to leave my judgment of that to his United team. But I want to see him front up, speak to the media, and win us over. So let's move on to how he's going to win these players over, because it actually feels like on paper United are quite well suited to this 3 at the back system that Ruben Amorim wants to deploy. Sort of 3-4-3, a very fluid front line, wing backs very wide, quite a dynamic midfield duo. United's squad, particularly at centre back, aligns quite nicely, other than maybe at left wing back. We're going to come on to that in a little bit, and we'll start with the goalkeepers. So let's start with Andre Onana, who's going to be an obvious keep, because I think he's been Manchester United's player of the season so far, which isn't a great sign, but he actually suits how Ruben Amorim wants to play his football as well. We talk about him operating in a back 3, but in build-up often, one of the centre-backs tucks into midfield. The keeper almost operates as a centre-back in possession to allow the 2 centre-backs to split and play. Now, that does suit Andre Onana, doesn't it? We know on the ball he's very comfortable under pressure. He's able to clip passes over the top of the forwards, into the fullbacks. He's able to split the lines into midfield. I think Ruben Amorim is really going to enjoy playing with Andre Onana. I think his shot stopping has really, really improved over the last 3 or 4 months, to be honest with you. Back in the last season, he was good. Start of this season, he's been exceptional. As for Altay Biandir, let's just put him in keep for now. Really never gets a look in, does he? It's a little bit harsh, and he was never given a chance by Erik ten Hag. I think it's just 1 appearance in a Manchester United shirt, or maybe 2 now. Not seen enough of him, but United need a backup keeper, and he's under contract. As for Tom Heaton, much loved character around the squad. So I think probably, given that he is just 3rd choice at this stage, it's probably a keep. His contract expires in 2025. Doesn't play many minutes for Manchester United. But as you see with pretty much every elite club in the Premier League, the 3rd choice goalkeeper is a more experienced, homegrown option that is very, very solid in the dressing room. I can tell from experience, Tom Heaton is one of the most loved characters in that Manchester United dressing room. I don't think Amorim's going to want to mess with that. Okay, let's go to the right backs. This is where it starts to get interesting, isn't it? Because it's no longer going to be a right back, you would think. These players are going to have to be operating as right wing backs. For me, this really suits Diogo Dalot. I think he could be one of the biggest beneficiaries of Ruben Amorim's arrival. His sloppiness in defensive positioning at the back post does sometimes cost Manchester United. His ability in forward areas is excellent, despite the fact he missed that open goal. He's very good on the ball. He's good at whipping crosses in. I think there is a legitimate argument to say he probably suits being a right wing back more than a right back. So I would say he's going to be a definite keep. Probably the starting right wing back in a 3-4-3 system that Amorim's going to want to deploy. There's a lot to be improved on in his game still, I feel, Dalot. I think particularly concentration. There are times when he can just go to sleep because there is the foundation of a really good player there. He is talented. He just needs to go to the next level now. As for Mazraoui, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because he was clearly bought in to offer cover for Diogo Dalot. As an Erik ten Hag signing, potentially an ex-Ajax player, he was quite cheap. Does he want to operate as a wing-back? I kind of think that suits him a little bit as well. His attributes are at best when he's on the ball. I've seen that already at Manchester United. We saw that previously at Bayern Munich. He's very comfortable in possession. He actually inverts really nicely, but that's not what Amorim is going to want from his wing-backs. So can Mazraoui offer that pace on the touchline to cover on the outside of a winger, to offer a different dimension to how United want to play and want to build up? I do think he's smart enough to do that, and as he only arrived in the summer, there's no way he's going to be in the sell category. He's an absolutely adept backup and will push Dalot for that right wing-back slot. Okay, that takes us to the left-backs. Again, this is probably going to become a left wing-back. Luke Shaw, he's under contract till 2027. The injury record has just piled up and piled up, hasn't it? It's difficult because it doesn't feel like he is sellable because he doesn't play any games, and when he plays games, he's so good for the club. He's so effective for Manchester United, and I really think he could be an excellent left wing back. Is he going to be fit enough across the course of the season to have big impacts on games? I'm unconvinced. His minutes per season are declining. It was just 950 minutes last season. If that drops again this season, and we're talking 600, 700 minutes, United have a big issue. I'm going to have to put him in keep because I just don't see him being a sellable asset with such little game time. There's no doubt United have to sign a left back in the summer, or at least in January. And I think that will probably be a priority if we shift to the back three and the left wing back is required. Malacia as well, he's under a long-term contract. And again, it's just not a sellable asset, is it? Like, could he be a loan? It's a keep, really, isn't it? Because he's been out for so long with his double knee problem. I can't even remember the last time I saw him in group training pictures. I think he's in individual training still. I feel so sorry for him because there was something there when he first joined the club. As a left wing back, it's the unknown. We haven't seen enough of Malacia at Manchester United to have formed a full opinion on what he is best at, what position suits him best, what role suits him best. The left back, left wing back area is a big concern for me under Amorim. Could the solution to that be Harry Maas? You know, he is just 17 years old, but we heard Erik ten Hag talk about him in pre-season. This is the season of Harry Maas. He's not been given a chance. Again, a big issue for me, and I think a lot of Manchester United fans about Erik ten Hag was it felt like he was sticking by players that he liked for too long, despite the fact they were underperforming. Harry Maas should have been given chances at left back at the start of this season, for me. Given the issues United have had there, the amount of injuries they've had there, I'm surprised he hasn't even got a minute. He's a definite keep for me. I really hope that Ruben Amorim has a look at him and goes, do you know what, there's something there. We've got issues to Luke Shaw, we've got issues with Malacia. He promoted 25 players from Sporting's B side over the course of his 4-year tenure into first team football. I think there's a big opportunity for some of the young players at Manchester United, and that will have been one of the positives around hiring Ruben Amorim. You look at the results and the form of Manchester United's under-18 side, players like Shea Lacey, players like Chido Martin coming into the side. I think there's going to be real opportunities for youth, and Harry Maas could definitely benefit from that. Into the centre-backs, again, a position that I think could really benefit from the three-at-the-back system. There are a lot of players in this centre-back roster that suit a three for me. One of them could well be Matthias de Ligt, who I think has been clinically underrated so far at the start of the season. Nearly every time I've watched him, I thought he's played really well. I think he is a natural leader and will definitely be a starter in this Amorim side, potentially as the central centre-back in the back three. So he is going to be straight into my keep category. As for Johnny Evans, his contract's up at the end of the season. I think it probably is time for a contract exit here, potentially moving into a coaching role at the club. He's been an absolute model professional, and certainly over the course of the first couple of months of this season, been United's best centre-back when he's played. You know, the performance away at Aston Villa was absolutely monstrous. He hasn't put a single foot wrong. But United have to move on from relying on players like Johnny Evans. I love him. Such a good character, such a good leader. Really important for United over the last 12 months. But out of contract in the summer. And United need to start looking forward more. One of the players we're going to be looking forward at is no doubt Lenny Yoro. Again, it feels like the back three works for Lenny Yoro because he would have had limited opportunities in a back four. You know, with Martinez and with Matthias de Ligt there, it feels like Lenny Yoro's first team action probably would have come in the Europa League, maybe some of the cup competitions, maybe as an impact sub with Harry Maguire also an option there. Whereas when there's a back three, the opportunities are far more vast, and there's definitely going to be a battle for the right centre-back role if Matthias de Ligt is operating as a central centre-back. If that's the case, Lenny Yoro might well win that battle. In pre-season, he looked excellent. We're talking about one of the highest rated young central defenders in Europe. Fingers crossed he's fully recovered from the foot injury, and that is not going to hold him back across the rest of the season because he's back out on grass now. It's a keep. I think Amorim coming in for Lenny Yoro is a big, big positive. Let's go to Harry Maguire then, whose contract is technically up in 2025, but he has got the optional extra year that the club can extend to 2026. I think that's probably the case. And look, Harry Maguire has been a good servant to Manchester United. You can hate on him all you want. He's dealt with the nonsense around Manchester United really well. He's been stripped of the captaincy. He's been embarrassed at times. He's never once kicked up a fuss. He's never once moaned. He's actually put in some pretty decent performances recently. But with 1 year left on his contract, I think United probably should be looking to sell. I'm not sure he would want to sign a new contract. If he does, it feels like it would probably be on quite reduced terms and certainly with a reduced role again. Sure, there's going to be lots of takers for Harry Maguire in the market because at any sort of mid-table club, he's going to be the best centre-back. He's a really good player on the ball. It's underrated his ability to fire cross-field passes. In a deeper line, he'll be absolutely fine. But again, a little bit like Johnny Evans, if United want to start to progress forward, they need to start looking forward. And is Harry Maguire part of that forward-looking project? You know, there are arguments to be saying Luke Shaw potentially isn't part of that, but with such limited options at left-back, he's a less sellable asset than Harry Maguire. I would be fine with us keeping Maguire, but I can see us selling him. As for Lisandro Martinez, definite keep. He's probably going to be the starting left-sided centre-back. Again, I feel like it suits him. Covers for some of his deficiencies playing in a back three, but it also highlights some of his best abilities, which are those line-splitting passes into the midfield. Maybe he'll become the centre-back who drops in and plays alongside the defensive midfielder. That could be quite interesting to see for Lisandro Martinez. Either way, he's a nailed-on keep. Victor Lindelof's contract is up this summer, so if we're honest, that's probably going to be a contract exit. It feels like United should probably have sold him in the summer. I'm pretty sure they tried to sell him in the summer, but couldn't find a taker. Potentially, he didn't want to leave the club. He's on a very good wage, you would imagine. He's very happy in Manchester. Why should he be forced out of the club? There's absolutely no reason for him to want to leave. Either way, this coming summer, I don't see United giving him a new contract. I would be surprised if he finds some sort of spot under Ruben Amorim, particularly with Lenny Yoro arriving at the club. You never know, though. You never know. Maybe playing in a back three, Ruben Amorim comes in, Victor Lindelof suddenly finds some form. For me, though, there's just too much defensive fragility there. I think you can highlight that in the draw away at Fenerbahce, the ball looped over his head. I've seen that a million times. I just don't think the defensive standard is quite there. Let's go into the midfield then. Casemiro. Probably still in my sell category, but never say never with Casemiro, particularly under Amorim. We know how he likes this midfield too. One of them far more combative. Potentially that is going to have huge upside for Manuel Ugarte, who we're going to come on to in a second, and it could have big upside for Casemiro. I don't think Casemiro is as done as some people say. This sort of idea that he should be playing nowhere near the top level, I'm still slightly reserved on, just because United's midfield, whoever plays in there, gets carved apart, and I think that was probably 90% down to the structure of Erik ten Hag's midfield, how they wanted to press and how they wanted to play. I'm interested to see Casemiro in 6 months to see if in a totally different structure that isn't so exposed, in this back three with two slightly more dynamic midfielders, whether or not he is still looking as leggy and as easily run past. If he's not, then I could see United end up keeping him, because it's hard to find a taker for a man on that big a wage at that age. So if that is the case, I could see him being kept. But for now, it feels obvious to put him into the sell category. Manuel Ugarte, the biggest winner, potentially, of this Ruben Amorim signing. Has obviously worked with Ruben Amorim in the past. He's definitely going to go in the keep category. Probably play as one of the midfield too. He knows the system. He has a really strong relationship with the coach. Is there a downside? It feels like he's going to have a big uptick in form. Fingers crossed. If that doesn't happen, there are big worries. Kobbie Mainoo, obviously the face of the project really at Manchester United, obviously going to go and keep. On paper, when you immediately think of how Amorim's going to line up, Ugarte and Mainoo feel like the midfield too. They do, don't they? And whether or not that proves to be the case will remain to be seen. But I'm very happy with Kobbie Mainoo's development. He's added different strings to his bow this current season. He's putting up massive interception numbers, some of the biggest interception numbers of any midfielder in Europe. His off-the-ball work has really improved. I think he looks bigger and stronger, but still excellent on the ball. I want to see him closer to goal, though. So hopefully that's where Amorim plays him. A little bit more advanced, get involved in attacks, because his feet in and around the box are exceptional. Christian Eriksen has had a massive remontada this season, hasn't he? It's been amazing to watch, really, Christian Eriksen, because I think we can all agree we thought his Manchester United career was probably over, but somehow at the start of this campaign, he's found himself back in the starting berth in the middle of the park. Is that going to continue under Amorim? I'm doubtful. I'm doubtful in the midfield too, whether or not we're going to see as much Christian Eriksen as we saw Erik ten Hag utilise it. And again, I think it was quite a big bugbear for me that at the start of the season, Eriksen was being used so much, because I don't see the progression, the future, the development with Christian Eriksen in there. He's not going to improve now. We know what we're going to get from Christian Eriksen. I wanted to see a younger player, a player that had been signed, or a player being bought through the academy, given more minutes in the midfield that we can see for the future. He's been good at the start of the season, Eriksen, but despite that, I still think I would have him in contract exit. Another midfielder that could really benefit from Ruben Amorim is Toby Collier. Like I said, he's got a great track record of production from Sporting's youth academy. He's given 17-year-olds a chance this season. Toby Collier is a little bit more advanced at that. He's over 20 years old now. I'm going to say loan, potentially even in January, if the minutes don't start coming, because Casemiro is still there. If they do start coming, he's going to jump straight up into that keep category. He's obviously highly rated. I've seen a lot of scouts that worked with Toby Collier or saw Toby Collier at youth level when he was at Brighton, talking about him as being one of the highest ceiling players of any of the sort of youth academy group right now in the Premier League. So he's definitely got a chance at Manchester United. And again, I think Amorim's track record with youth makes that even more clear. Bruno Fernandes, El Capitano, definitely going in the keep category. It feels like he needs to be closer to goal. You know, I've been banging this drum under Erik ten Hag. He's got too deep, he's got more deep. At times he's been playing as a central. Get him closer to goal. Get him in those creative areas where we saw the flick around the corner for the Højlund goal against Brentford. Now, he never worked under Ruben Amorim. Of course, he left just before Amorim arrived, but feels like a natural Portuguese connection. He's going to be a key to this team. I think it's also a win for Mason Mount, to be honest with you, because, again, there are more options in the attack now, and the way Amorim utilizes that front three, how fluid it is, how players that are 10s can become wingers, wingers can become 10s, float around and get involved in little pockets, that does suit Mason Mount's game. Also, his off-the-ball ability suits the back three system. If you remember, Thomas Tuchel getting the best out of Mason Mount at Chelsea was almost in sort of the right-wing role, come floating 10 role, when he was playing in a super high-pressing team that won the Champions League. That was where we saw the best of Mason Mount. So that might well happen again. I'm prepared to give him time. Just please stay injury-free, Mace. Another big winner. No doubt about this one. Amad Diallo. Got to be kept. He's only got 12 months left on his contract, and that is a big concern. United have got to find a way of keeping Amad Diallo and getting him into the team. For me, he is on the ball one of United's most talented players. He makes things happen whenever he plays. When I saw Anthony come on the pitch ahead of him against Fenerbahce, I thought this could be the end of Amad at Manchester United. He will be royally irritated at that, and these are the sort of instances that cause players not to sign new contracts. Now Erik ten Hag's gone, I think Amad's chances of being a starter at United have dramatically improved. Unlike Amad, I think Anthony's have just taken a massive hit. I think he's going to drop down into the sell category right now. I struggle to see where he fits in with Amad available, with Mason Mount who can drift out there, with Garnacho who can also play it on the right. I'm not sure he is good enough on the ball to do damage in the Premier League, and it feels like the experiment at this stage has failed. Whether or not he proves me wrong remains to be seen, but for now, I think everybody at home would also agree with me putting him in the sell category. As for Alejandro Garnacho, definitely a keep. I think he's maybe United's most dangerous forward. Whenever he's in 1v1 situations, you think something's going to happen. He's a player that gets fans out of their seats for sure. His goal-scoring numbers have continued to climb. His XG is at the best it's been at in his Manchester United career. His shot numbers are also right up there. If he can just start taking his chances, man, he could be on for a 15-goal season if he could just start burying them, because there was two big chances against West Ham. I think that's the Palace game. There were missed chances there. Just a little bit more composure, and that's going to come because he's still so young and he's so highly talented. But I do believe when Amorim starts to get him in areas to score goals more effectively, his numbers are going to skyrocket. He could score 15 this season, Garnacho. I also think another huge beneficiary of this system could be Marcus Rashford. I'm having him in keep. People at home will be saying, sell him, you've got to cut your losses now. I'm still not convinced it's time to sell Rashford. The key is United's only proven goal scorer in the front line, for a start. If we can get him in the right areas, Rashford's going to score goals. He spent too much time under Erik Ten Hag on the touchline. You look at his heat maps towards the back end of Ten Hag, he's playing like a left wing back, right wing back at times. Get him close to the box. He played far too wide under Ten Hag recently. He's got to be closer to the box to make the difference. Ethan Wheatley, of course, Academy Player of the Year last year. I'm going to put in loan. Rasmus Højlund, no doubt going in keep. Could he play this sort of Victor Gyökeres role of a more physical centre forward that likes to run the channels? And fingers crossed we're going to see his shot numbers climb. Shot numbers for Rasmus Højlund have always been quite low, hence why he's had quite a low XG. But when he's got into areas to score goals, he's taken them really well. So I'm hoping that if Amorim can find spaces inside the box, as he did with Gyökeres, those numbers will just suddenly explode. Because I want to see the shot numbers double, honestly, under Rasmus Højlund. If they do, we could have a machine on our hands. Fingers crossed, we stick by him. Joshua Zirkzee, I mean, he's only been there 3 months, so he's going in keep. I'm interested to see where Amorim uses him. What's going to be his best role in this sort of creative front three? Is it going to be as a backup to Bruno? I'm not sure how he fits as a backup to Rasmus in this Amorim style. Maybe it works because when I think of Amorim's best football at Sporting, a lot of it is sort of poppy, one-touch football in and around the box that looks amazing, almost like a rondo where it's fired in for the midfielder and it's 1-1-1-1 and then they get a shot off. If that happens, that could suit Zirkzee because he's got those little flicks and tricks around the corner in his locker, but his shot numbers are low, his XG numbers are low, he's missed some huge chances. I think he's the biggest XG underperformer in this Manchester United squad, one of the biggest in the Premier League so far this season. So overall, as you can see, I'm not as negative about this squad as some people at home. I know some people think that United's squad is packed with prima donnas who aren't good footballers. I don't necessarily agree. I don't think this is the same dressing room that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had, that Jose Mourinho had, where it's full of big, experienced characters that are problematic. I don't think that's the case. I think there's a really exciting group of young players in this Manchester United squad, and with the right coach, they could really do some damage. At times this season, even under Erik Ten Hag, there's been little 20-minute spells, 30-minute spells, 45-minute spells where United have looked good. It's just they haven't been able to knit it together consistently, and that's obviously been a massive issue. I'm not denying that. There's a foundation there. But Manchester United fans, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. See you later.